Welcome, lovely listeners, boys and girls and others across the world, to another wonderful episode of Marvelous or the Death of Cinema.
And we're here to ask you, who watches The Watchmen?
Quid custodiet ipsos custodies.
In order to avoid watching Batman vs. Superman as long as possible. Yes, hi guys, it's your friends. It's me. It's Nicole. Hi.
It's Discourse.
Hi, we're talking about another comic book movie.
We watch Watchmen. Da, 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 da.
And I rudely interrupted Stu.
Discourse Stu, aka Tyrell James, noted internet intellectual influencer, thought leader.
Noted Rorschach Abbey haver. I feel like you've had a Rorschach
I have
Abbey.
never had a Rorschach Abbey.
Really?
You're thinking
Why
of
am
my
I-
you're thinking of my Umineko Abbey, probably, which isn't black and white.
Okay, maybe. Okay, because I was joking, like I wrote in my notes, like, which is like kind of like it's in the comics, but some of Rorschach's like diary just sounds like 4chan green text.
Rorschach's Journal, October 12th, 1985. This city's afraid of me. All the vermin will drown. And all the whores, all those liberals, and intellectuals, and smooth talkers. It screams like children in the night.
I mean, that's the kind of guy that would be like.
But that's the guy he is.
who reads Watchmen and just thinks Rorschach is cool, and he's the cool guy.
Not
Is the guy that
right-wing crank,
yeah.
ginger, mentally ill. But we're
No, if you're gonna be a mentally
Yeah.
ginger, you've got to be a left wing crank. That's the key.
exactly.
But
exactly.
he's a parody of that type. Like that's the thing. Like Rorschach is a compelling character. You know, he's got a certain but like a lot of his kind of noirish diatribe is supposed to be funny in the book. Like a lot of stuff in the book that people take totally at face value is not like on the level of like a Starship Troopers, but like there's meant to be an element of comedy to it. It's meant to be a little bit satirical.
Doesn't he like eats like sugar cubes randomly? Like there are like, and this is something I think we should have first like just establish. I up until like 3-4 days ago, really my only experience with like Watchmen was I had seen the Zach Snyder movie. My roommate freshman year of college, she would actually like cosplay Silk Spectre. We went to New York Comic Con together, and she was just like always getting stopped for photographs because she was like such a great like the Silk Spectre like based on the Snyder movie, which you're gonna have to listen to me talk about the depiction of the Silk Spectres.
She's not wearing silk in this movie. It's more latex.
No,
kinda.
it's like latex because this is Zack Snyder in 2007, and this is the height of like
is this
weaponized
07?
femininity. It's like it was filmed in 07. It was released in 09.
Before, but it's after Batman Begins. It's before because Rorschach in the Jackie Earl Haley, and I don't blame him for this. It was probably, I'm guessing it was like a director thing or something, but he's totally doing like the Christopher Nolan Batman voice.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't look into like how closely those two were in production with one another or if there was any crossover, but why specifically obviously we're talking about this movie. We're going backwards in time. This is 2009. We're obviously doing this in order to procrastinate having to watch chronologically what is the next major superhero film, which is Batman versus Superman: Dawn of Abortion.
Not the Avengers. A XXX parody.
Yes, because I know that's going to be terrible.
Well,
that's going to be like a 3-hour plus movie.
Zach Snyder to me, because we'll have to get into the Snyder cut thing and everything at some point.
Because I think this is the thing that established it. Because there are 3 different cuts of this movie.
Yeah, I watched the Ultimate Cut, which has the entire animated Black Freighter.
Oh, I thought you watched the director's cut. Oh, you watched the super long cut?
The 3.5 hour one? Yeah.
Oh shit, man.
I didn't realize there was a difference between the Ultimate Cut and the director's cut. The Blade Runner has that same bullshit.
Can I you know what? Can I I can describe what the difference is in my kind of lackluster summary that I wrote. But also we should. This is all coming to me at once because I just looked at my browser page. We need to thank our patrons.
Yeah, we should. Before we launch into this, our shout out to our producer and executive producer tier patrons.
Yes, everyone give it up for my homegirl. It's Violet.
Thank you, Violet, for supporting the show.
Violet, I love you. You're my daughter. Violet has been OG since the beginning, so Violet, you are an official producer of the worst podcast on the internet.
Oh, come on. That is not fair. MK Ultra Money has a podcast. What is that guy's name? John, James, Jeff? Not Jeff Healy. James?
Joshua Jenkins. Thank you, Joshua Jenkins.
Joshua Jenkins. Yes, thank you so much.
Then we got our first $10 patron, executive producer, Ronnie Gardock. Okay, I looked this up. That's a character name. I don't think that's not his real name.
Well, I mean, fair enough for him. He doesn't want to be doxxed.
Yeah, fair enough. We don't care. Where's the character from? The Shield.
The Shield. Oh, I only watched a few episodes of that.
Yeah, the fucking Dennis Leary FX show, The Shield.
That's not dead. No, Dennis Leary was
not The Shield.
Rescue Me.
Oh,
this is
Rescue
Michael
Me.
Chiklis and
all FX shows is the same.
Actually, some of those were some of the better ones. The Americans was a pretty good show. I need to finish the last season of that.
And then we have Salt Bank, who is actually he's actually the contact I was telling you about, the comic book expert. So he's a producer who probably will eventually be on a bonus.
He's bought his way onto the show, folks.
Yeah, he's bought his way onto the show officially. But yeah, for right now, this is a classic Nicole and Stu episode. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to tell you about Watchmen, the movie, and Watchmen, the comic, but not Watchmen, the HBO limited series. So
you watched
Miguel,
Men.
We watched Men. Okay, Miguel, cue up that My Chemical Romance Desolation Row cover. Watchmen, not to be confused with the HBO limited series Watchmen, is Zach Snyder's big screen adaptation of Alan Moore's seminal comic book series Watchmen. Watchmen the comic, not to be confused with Watchmen the movie or Watchmen the HBO limited series, is a deconstruction of the superhero genre set in an alternate post-war America where superheroes exist, drastically altering the outcome of the 20th century but nonetheless bringing the Cold War to the precipice of mutual nuclear annihilation come 1985. Following the murder of Edward Blake, a former mass vigilante turned military contract killer known as the Comedian, his old crime-fighting teammate Rorschach, an objectivist ginger crank who speaks in 4chan green text, uncovers a particularly world-ending conspiracy that brings the surviving crime-buster teammates Night Owl 2, Silk Spectre 2, Dr. Manhattan, and Ozymandias into a complex moral quandary testing their values, assumptions, and convictions about superheroes. Long considered unfilmable due to its graphic content, dark themes, and the prominence of Dr. Manhattan's cock and balls, Watchmen the movie is relatively faithful to Watchmen the comic. Still, the Watchmen movie was polarizing among fans of Watchmen the comic due to its condensed storyline and the ending being changed from Ozymandias teleporting a giant telepathic squid to kill 3 million New Yorkers for world peace, to Ozymandias coordinating several accurate atomic bombs in numerous international cities for world peace. Watchmen is also the Snyder film that helped establish what will become the DCU's visual language, meaning we get all of our favorite Snyderisms in a less headache-inducing form. Slow-motion action, CGI objects being thrown at the camera in slow motion, lots of schlocky punching and kicking sound effects, a muddy color palette, and needle drops in place of nuanced storytelling and narrative wit. Watchmen, the Zach Snyder movie, is available in 3 versions: the 2-hour and 42-minute theatrical cut, the 3-hour and 6-minute Snyder cut, and the 3-hour and 35-minute ultimate cut for real Snyder sickos. I rewatched the theatrical cut while Stu watched the I wrote the director's cut, but no, Stu watched the ultimate.
I watched the ultimate cut. It was the ultimate.
Because we do the bare minimum prep for this podcast and didn't discuss which cut of the movie we should watch.
I said we should watch the long one. I guess they're all the long one. They're all fucking more than 2.5 hours. But I mean,
regardless of all these different cuts, all these different cuts have been disowned as Watchmen adaptations by Alan Moore because he's an anarchist force wizard who believes a Watchmen movie misses the point of a Watchmen comic. And he's right, because in a world at the mercy of American empire, superheroes would cease to be either super or heroic, and that's the bottom line. Stay tuned next episode for when Stu and I watch Zack Snyder's 3+ hour director's cut of Batman vs. Superman and decide to finally end it all.
have you ever heard of R. Bud Dwyer?
Yeah, no, for real. That's gonna be our like Bud Dwyer episode. I am really not. Like, this is like, I give this I originally gave this 3.5 stars because, like, you know, it's long and stuff, but it is like engaging, but I think that's more just because Watchmen itself, like the source material is so good.
Yeah,
it's not like, and yeah, this is an alright movie, and it's probably Zack Snyder's most competent superhero movie that we've seen thus far.
Yeah,
that we've seen thus far.
So I was gonna say like I don't know, Dawn of the Dead, 2004, and
yeah. Well, that was his debut.
Yeah, and 300 are probably better movies. I haven't seen 300 in a long time.
That looks. I don't know.
I mean,
300 is actually what got him this job.
Yeah, because he's like, he's the comic book guy. Because I mean, and here's the thing: like, to the extent this movie does work, it's because he's not always, but a lot of time he's fanboyish about the stories. It's obviously like he does love comics. And I think
he clearly loves Watchmen. Like, he used the actual comic itself as storyboards.
But just in general, I think he's a comic book guy. I think he loves this stuff. And I think his love of it and his like genuine, like earnest love of it bleeds through. And that's, I think, like the people that are like ride or die Snyder heads, I think that's what they're responding to, is that he loves the stuff and engages with it at the kind of the same level they do.
Yeah, no, I see that, which is like,
but
yeah,
he doesn't really understand Watchmen.
No, he doesn't. He
doesn't get it. And this is where I'm going to have to talk a lot about the comics. I really love the comic.
Yes,
and I think
Stu
I'm not an expert. Like, I'm not an expert on it. Like, even things I really love, I'm not like I've read it like 4 times, I think, over my life. Watchmen. So it's not like I like know every panel. Like, I'm going to forget stuff and get stuff wrong from memory already. You know, last time I read it was like 4 months ago, 3 or 4 months ago. I was stoned the whole time, so that's probably part of why. But it's a really like Alan Moore is a pretty meticulous writer, and he's really deliberate about structure, about these kind of mirrored motifs. Like the chapter in the middle of the book, Fearful Symmetry. That chapter itself is like the panel layouts and the coloring and the kind of the image composition are mirrored. Like, you get to the center of that chapter and it kind of almost goes in reverse in a way.
The sense I get is he's a very like
not to undercut about the artist Dave Gibbons, awesome art, but like I've read excerpts from the scripts, and he's like, he writes these like really detailed scripts, but then there's a lot of notes. Like, if this works for you, you riff on this, but like, But
like right down to like what's on like a character's desk or hanging on their wall. Like he describes it in meticulous detail to be illustrated.
And that's the thing with a comic. When you really take advantage of it as a medium, is you can layer these incidents because you can just sit on unlike a shot in a movie, you can just sit on a panel as long as you want to absorb all the detail.
Yeah.
And read the graffiti in the background and everything else. So you get all these little homages, these little symbolic things and stuff that just kind of weave into the larger whole. And he's like
he's Easter eggs, I guess.
Well, not even Easter eggs because they're thematically relevant, right? And or is illustrative of character.
But it's also like now that it's like the Marvel cinematic universification of that concept now is just throwing in Easter eggs to be like, look, Captain America's shield.
Yeah.
Look, it's Superman's the
underwear.
Yeah, he was that's why he did like 10 9/11s because he was looking for his underwear.
Yeah, but it's but like I was saying, like he's this stuff's all very carefully thought out. And if you want to delve into it, like you can like it becomes it kind of becomes as dense as you want it to be, but there's a lot there if you want to dig into it. And like yeah, he's like the Forest Wizard thing is an offhand joke. He's like into occult magic, Aleister
but
Crowley
also like
stuff.
Look at him. Like also look at him.
He looks the part. But like the whole thing, like so there's this whole thing with Dr. Manhattan in the book. And I think that's actually one of the best sequences in the movie is his kind of
I agree.
Flashback, flash around thing.
Yeah,
but it's also like
opening
in a comic book. It's a meta thing because in a comic book you can flip back and forth between the panels. Time is laid out in this static form where it kind of has a structure that goes from point A to point B, but you can flip in between each point at will. It doesn't play out in real time like a movie does. So part of that Dr. Manhattan sort of Slaughterhouse 5 unstuck in time thing, that whole perceiving all of time in beginning to end all at once thing is like a comic book commentary. But it's also like a thing Alan Moore actually believes about the structure of reality. Like if you listen to interviews with him.
Yeah.
Like it's not just like a fun little thought, like it's all like tied together. And that's the thing, like, again, like it's so integral to the medium of comics. So a movie or even like a mini series is kind of shot. It's almost like adapting a video game. It's kind of potentially shot from the jump because the story it's adapting is so tailor made to the medium it's in. But it's also just, it can't like the movie is pretty surface level. It's like it's the way you understand Watchmen when you first read it when you're 15.
Yeah, it's very faithful. Like Zach Snyder used literal, like just used the book panels itself as storyboards to direct like how a scene would unfold. Not exactly. He puts in his own shit too, or at least him and his writers that are just like. Clearly his contributions.
The places where they riff stand out so sharply from when they're just one for one doing the material.
But like, this was a movie that was literally this Watchmen was considered unfilmable, like famously by Terry Gilliam, great director of Monty Python, Holy Grail, Brazil. Baron Munchausen,
a guy who could have gotten closer
movies.
To getting the his version probably would have been less slavishly faithful to the source material, but probably closer in spirit and theme.
Yes, he said this would be a concept that really would only work as a multi-part miniseries.
Oh, totally,
and I agree. Like I watched the first episode of the Watchmen limited series just to check it out, and it gives a lot more time for like the issue, I think, in having to condense literal massive tome like Watchmen is like in condensing things, you have to do more of a surface level passover. So you're missing a lot of these details and like certain pacing that is like necessary in order for these specific character arcs and storylines to feel
Well, it's also
like feel important
like-
and believable and resonance.
But it's also the problem in translating the medium, because when you read the book, you
Yeah.
get thought bubbles and narration in addition to dialogue. And again, you can linger on details, like each panel so carefully framed and choreographed. You can linger on details that tell you a lot that you could miss in a movie shot, even of the same thing, because you don't have the time to process it. But also, as like the book in like between chapters, between what would have been issues and originally came out, are interstitial bits, excerpts from Hollis Night Owl One's memoir, stuff
Under
like
the
that.
hood.
Yeah, that fills kind of things
Just-
out.
Oh my god! I just realized it because after he retires, he becomes
the
an
car
auto repair guy.
mechanic. So
Oh my god!
yeah.
I'm fucking stupid. I'm so fucking stupid. I was like, but wait, no, he's not Hooded Justice. What is that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
No, I've missed so
Damn.
many of those too. They're just so on the nose that they like go right over your head. But
yeah.
So stuff from those parts is kind of like crowbarred into the dialogue in a way that like feels
Yes.
unnatural, and it just stands
Yes.
out from a lot of the other stuff.
Yes.
So like, but I think it's interesting because it's illustrative in how he tackles this material and what he gets about it, what he doesn't get, what he changes, how he interprets it visually, even because like Watchmen is not an action comic.
No.
The handful
No,
of
and
like,
that's the big
fights
one of the
in
big
it
differences.
are very brief and kind of perfunctory. They're totally kind of beside the point. It's like you get enough panels to know, Laurie and Dan, Silk Spectre 2 and Night Owl 2 beat up some muggers in an alleyway. It's like a few panels.
Or they're
'cause
breaking into the jail to get Rorschach out.
Yeah.
It's not this extended long sequence where you just
it's
see
not
Silk Spectre in latex kicking people, and you just
it's
just
not
seriously got
super slow mo.
You don't see her camel
awesome
toe.
action.
Like, come on,
Yeah.
like.
And that's the thing, like that, like admittedly, as much as like his color grading drives me insane, that
That
style of shooting action works great for something like 300, right?
Yeah,
like it works great for certain, but it's not what Watchmen is or is about. So the idea that he needs to do the like epic superhero action stuff in this movie shows that he's kind of missing something. Like, this comic's pretty interesting. It's got a lot of interesting ideas. It's like, what if superheroes were realistic and morally ambiguous? But we need to amp up the action. And it's like, because the point isn't that these guys are cool. They're not cool and they're not epic. They're pathetic, maybe a little scary in how deranged they are. Aside from Dr. Manhattan's supposed to be genuinely, he's supposed to quote the book and the movie, inspire religious terror. Because he is a demigod, and that's upsetting.
He's the real Man of Steel.
Yeah,
he is.
But everybody else is supposed to be like, yeah, they can beat up a bunch of muggers, but they're supposed to be like kind of sad. Like again, like it's taking the super and the heroic out of these characters, except possibly in like a very antique sense of heroism. But even then. Like Rorschach's pathetic. Dan Dryberg's pathetic. Even the comedian's pretty pathetic. Like
he's
they're
literally
sad,
a Nazi.
people.
Like he literally murdered. He literally did war crimes.
Oh, totally, yeah. And
yeah. And just to say nothing
JFK.
about the attempted rape, and he killed JFK. Which I had forgot about
for George H.W. Bush and Richard Nixon in the CIA.
Speaking, you know what? Let's start with the famous opening titles for this movie, which I think a lot of people hold in pretty well regard. It's like very memorable, and I think that opening like title sequence is very, very illustrative of not only like what Zach Snyder like does and like his sort of style, but it also kind of betrays.
This movie's super boomer pilled. Which the book really isn't that much because it was still the 80s.
Yeah. Like this is a very but this is a very like I watch this movie and I think of being in a Hot Topic in a like 8th grade buying a like just a shitty t-shirt for way too much money. And it's the vibe I get. But what are your opinions on the opening titles? Because I think they actually show his strength.
Times They Are Changing is maybe a little on the nose as a song choice, like every song choice in this movie.
What was it on the nose at the time when this came out, though? Because I feel like watching this now, it's like all of these
admittedly,
needle drops are very obvious.
We weren't doing that as much then, but it was. But like it's still like I said, it's very boomer pilled, coming from the late 2000s. But yeah, like the opening, like a lot of stuff in this movie is fine. And like I said, the theatrical cut on its own is like it's not a bad movie; it's watchable. Overall, like coming at it from like a general audience perspective. But it's just like if you know the source material, which is true of a lot of adaptations, but like it's less to like beat them up more so than it is just to like understand. Because like Zach Snyder is a filmmaker. Like there's things that we can try to understand about him in his perspective and his style, versus like the Marvel machine where so much of that is stripped. Which again is why I think people gravitate to him. Whereas like whatever his many flaws, he is a filmmaker who makes real movies, not great movies or even good movies all the time. But you know, I like when that's kind of your option, it's like a McDonald's or like a home cooked meal, but it's kind of like shitty and fucked up. Like.
Yeah.
But
no, there's a reason he became like the other major like Hollywood comic book movie director. And there's a reason people are like constantly dick riding for him on the internet. And there's a reason if you say anything bad about him, like this is I've been trying a couple times to go viral, Snyder. Like by see if maybe we can get some publicity for the pod by poking the Snyder fans. But that might be a very, very bad decision. Anyways, I don't know. The opening titles are very like what Zack Snyder does well.
They're pretty fine, and they're a point where like deviating from the source material to make it fit the medium you're in.
And it's a good way of it's a good way of like truncating like the background,
pocket context of the world you're in. You get that dollar bill. In the book, the superhero who was like hired and created is basically like a marketing stunt by banks.
Yeah, he gets his cape caught in the
revolving door, and he got all shot up, which is such a funny, again like the stuff. Like I don't know whether or not the movie's trying to be funny in a lot of situations, but the book is definitely meant to be like not goofy, ha. Like it's also like it's not insincere in its pathos as well, but it's also meant to be.
It's not funny in the same way.
It's like wry.
Like were we recording? Like Rorschach is arguably like I feel like Zack Snyder treats Rorschach very seriously.
Yeah, and he's supposed to be kind of
as like the moral compass and like the moral good. It's like no, he's like a right wing crazy crank who. Hates women and homosexuals.
Well, okay, here's the thing. I think he understands that he's fucked up in that sense a little bit. Like it's not totally but it's like
idealizing the Joker.
Yeah, but it's his like his uncompromising binary morality. His straight up just like, the end. So spoil the ending. Yeah. Ozymandias rigs up this scheme that kills millions of people, but supposed to stop the oncoming World War III and create world peace by giving an enemy for the world to unite against. And Rorschach's just like, well, no, this is wrong. Forget the consequences. It's just wrong. And I know you're going to kill me. And I'm going to, Dr. Manhattan, I know you're going to kill me. And I'm going to make you kill me. Because if you don't, I will tell the world about this and reignite World War III. Because what happens is beside the point. It's just wrong.
Yeah. He goes, do it like Shia LaBeouf.
Superstar Shia LaBeouf. Yeah. And
then Dr. Manhattan squeezes him to death.
And I mean, there is, and it's intentional, but there is something compelling about that level of conviction for someone to have it. But
there's a reason he's like the most like popular character. Like
Yeah.
He's like I made a joke about this. It's like the Joker to Rorschach spectrum. I feel like people who are like, Joker's a little too mainstream for them, then they go down.
But also, like, the Joker is kind of the opposite because he's totally amoral and nihilistic, whereas Rorschach is brutal and nihilistic, but if not moral per se, he has that's the book kind of goes into the explicitly into the symbology of his mask, which is the shapes constantly changing, but it's always black and white, right?
Yeah.
And he's based on in part he's just kind of like where Night Owl 2 is sort of like goofy Batman, more so Rorschach is sort of a take on like dark Frank Miller-y sort of Batman. But he's also like more explicitly, especially the character design is based on a couple like pretty, I think, like not well remembered Steve Ditko characters who are The Question and Mr. A, who are both just vehicles for Steve Ditko to go on about objectivism.
Yeah, I read like the Wikipedia page on Rorschach, and they mentioned him, and as soon as I saw Ayn Rand's name in the fucking Rorschach Wikipedia page, I was like, okay, that makes sense. But the thing is, like, Alan Moore thinks, like, he's said, like, oh, I think those views are like silly, like,
totally,
like, and the like one of the main points of Watchmen that is made is like, not everything is black and white, and by that definition, like, there can be no like moral absolutism. Like Rorschach is ridiculous.
It's a cop-out.
But I feel like Zach Snyder like treats Rorschach as like kind of idolizes him more. He's not really allowed. He
treats him as more of a conventional anti-hero. Like he's kind of fucked up and bad, but he has this kind of necessary moral clarity and hardness and honesty. But like really, like he's just pathetic. He's a guy that has no life outside of putting on his mask and beating up guys who a lot of the time haven't even done anything wrong. Like what does he do in the book?
That's
really,
what's lost.
He fails
that's
to
what's
solve
lost in the movie.
A mystery. He fails to do much of anything. He terrorizes a harmless old dying man multiple times. Only once. Then he goes back to terrorize him again and finds him dead. Like he's just he's a fucked up guy who's angry at the world and is finding a way to moralize it, as opposed to the Joker who's like the world's fucked up and I'm laughing at it, which I guess is the comedian also is sort of that nihilism.
Yeah, it's that, and again, it's I feel like it's very hard just to talk about this movie because of its source material being so like so good, and B like so detailed and so like
it's dense.
Rich and nuanced and dense
and structured. Like the book is structured very like the Dr. Manhattan, like he sits on Mars and kind of goes back and forth through his life.
The famous meme image.
Yeah. But like the whole book is structured like that. Like it's and the movie is kind of too. It's trying to, but like again, it's a comic book, so but like the whole comic book is structured like that. You're constantly going back and forth through time as it unfolds, right? Rorschach's wandering the streets, ranting in his head, and then you go to and like there's no the sequence of the comedian presumably Ozymandias in the end breaking in and killing him. That isn't in the book. It's just Rorschach has his little monologue while he walks through the streets towards that crime scene. And then you get the cops reconstructing the crime scene, but like inaccurately, while you just get little in between panels flashing to the, and like every fight in this movie's epicked up. Like the comedian doesn't put up a fight. He gets his ass kicked. He's thrown out a window and it's very short and punchy and brutal.
Yeah. He's like 60 years old.
Same with like when Owl 1 gets killed by those punks. Like in the
Which
movie,
was not in the theatrical cut.
It's not?
It's not in the theatrical cut. I was able to watch that scene separately.
In the movie, it's like this, like you get all these shots of his memorabilia and flashbacks to his awesome life of fighting crime, and he goes down swinging, and it's this kind of sad but a little bit heroic death as he fights off as he finally succumbs to this group of gang guys. But in the book,
the gang
they
just like
break in
bludgeons him.
in the book, they just break in and kick his ass and kill him because he's an old man. And it doesn't have that, like the movie has this kind of romantic sentimentality because Zack Snyder takes superheroes seriously, which is what people respond to. Like he tries to adult them, but he's adulting them while at the same time taking them seriously at a base level idea. Whereas Watchmen just, it's not.
Everyone say Kazoom tight.
Thank
Stu.
you. Well, it's not. What's serious is kind of a weird. It's hard. It's not the best word for it, but it's like Watchmen isn't unserious, but it just dispenses altogether again with the idea that there's anything super or heroic about these people when put in a quasi-realistic world. Whereas like with Man of Steel, it's like, oh, we've got this grittier, more realistic Superman, but he's still Superman. You know,
which is as I said.
And
Man
it's oblivious
Steel,
to the contradiction.
Man of Steel is just Dr. Manhattan. Like Zack Snyder's Man of Steel, like Superman is just Dr. Manhattan.
But also he's still Superman. He's still a guy who cares and does the right thing.
Does he?
Even if he's in the mentality of the movie. In the mentality of the movie. Whereas Dr. Manhattan is just explicitly like he's become like a god and he no longer relates to humanity. He's standing there on Mars thinking, so one species on one planet goes extinct. So fucking what? I'm just looking at the craters on Mars and they're just as good to me. Like, but Man of Steel can't go there, right?
No.
Oh, there's a rabbit outside my window.
Oh, hi, bunny.
So and that's the thing, and that's the problem with so many like the post Watchmen is like realistic gritty superheroes. It's like that's not
this and
point of
Dark Knight.
The point of Watchmen, if anything, is that you shouldn't do dark and gritty superheroes. Superheroes should be juvenile in their heroism, right? Like
that's the only way they actually would work realistically.
Like I don't think Alan Moore hates superheroes. He was just like, well, you know, if we are going to take them seriously like this is what you get. Which is why, but he's also like years after that, he would do superhero stories that were more that weren't deconstructions the way Watchmen is.
Yeah.
Like the idea that he was trying to kill superheroes isn't really accurate.
Yeah.
Or
I feel like Watchmen is it's better understood. Like it's not necessarily a superhero movie. It's more of a science fiction.
The book
kind of movie. I think it's
yeah, I think so. Yeah, that's fair because it's
and like its approach because the superhero genre has such a rigid sort of set of rules, and not that Zack Snyder has paid much attention to certain aspects. You know, see Man of Steel, where his version of Superman is just angry, autistic, war criminal, scary alien man.
Because that's what Superman would be like
because that's what
existed in real life.
It's like no, he's a himbo who wears red undies. Zach.
Yeah.
But like this, I think the tone for Watchmen is much better. For like this is a much more like, you know, not to say that this movie is, you know, a great adaptation of Watchmen. You know, it's fine. It's about as faithful as I think people could get in 2009, but like, you know, the bottom line is Zack Snyder just can't put to screen like all that detail and nuance that is there in the original comic.
No,
and its absence
could.
Is very noticeable for people who have watched, who have not watched, read the comic or watched the comic. There's the motion comic that I've been watching a few episodes of. But we should mention the cast too, because I think it also
the cast is, I think, mostly pretty strong.
Like Jackie Earle Haley, like Rorschach is really good.
Yeah, like I think his Batman voice was a bad choice, but otherwise, because in the comic books they describe him as having, like other characters remark to him, that he has like a creepy monotone. So I feel like something less grizzled and more kind of like affectless serial killer, super autistic would have been like
true
effective. But other than that, like he's pretty good. He definitely looks the part. I think Billy Crudup
absolutely.
is great. He brings this kind of dampened,
Dick and balls?
resigned, that Dick and balls, but it's kind of like resigned, kind of faint melancholy to Dr. Manhattan that I think is really appropriate.
I think the Dr. Manhattan like scene, that backstory scene is the strongest.
It is. Yeah, it is. And Patrick Wilson, I think, is a really good Dan Dryberg.
He has
if only because
Dwight
he
Street
sort of
glasses
looks
and
and
erectile
sounds vaguely
dysfunction.
like Bob Odenkirk.
Noted foot guy Bob Odenkirk.
But they sound a little similar, don't they? I'm not crazy, right?
Kinda.
Yeah.
No, you're not crazy.
But he's convincing as sort of like a dork, just a guy who's a huge dork, and got to cosplay superhero because he had a bunch of money and some nerd.
Night Owl was explicitly funded by Wall Street.
Yeah, which again, the Batman thing, right? Like, and I think the big weak
Ozymandias.
Point,
well,
I don't think that guy is necessarily a bad actor,
Matthew
but it's just like I don't think he's a bad actor or anything, but like he's so miscast, and he's given the wrong direction. He plays Ozymandias as a sallow, dark rims around his eyes schemer. When in the book he's a Chad. He's a square-jawed, smiling Chad that is full of charisma and is just like he like the thing with Ozymandias is he is good in a sense. He is genuinely good in this sense, a superheroic sense. And that goodness and that kind of like utilitarian liberal rationalism leads him to do something unspeakably horrific. But there should be nothing at all menacing or creepy or off-putting about him. He should be totally like Christopher Reeves, honestly.
It's like his Matthew Good's like clear. There's like one. I think it's the scene where Night Owl 2 is visiting Vite, Ozymandias, at his office, telling
after he's done telling Lee Iacocca to fuck off, basically, which is a funny thing to
Matthew Good's like that is a wig. That is a wig. His like hairline looks so bad. Like that is a wig hairline that has not been properly glued down. It is. I think people probably are picking up on this now, but I am very attuned to sensing bad wigs in movies.
Fashion and makeup stuff in general, you pick up on it. I don't.
Oh
mostly.
My god! We're gonna talk about like Silk Spectre's too, fucking costume design and how. Indicative of Zach Snyder and the Aaron.
One of the weakest points of the movie, both casting wise and in execution.
But I was gonna say, in the HBO series, Ozymandias is played by Jeremy Irons, and it's like, why the fuck didn't we get Jeremy Irons in the first place?
Would have been too old.
No, he would have been like not much older than presumably Adrian Veidt would have been in like 85. I also watched Madame Butterfly with him. Highly recommend. It's a Cronenberg movie without any body horror. It's different, but I liked it. That's
why his clothing never has any wrinkles. Because Jeremy Irons.
Let's just finally talk about Melina Ackerman.
Malin Ackerman.
Malin, whatever.
Malin Rebate Ackerman.
Malin. Yeah, this is like really the only prominent movie she's been in.
She's like TV tier, maybe.
She's more of like a TV actor. She was on like an Adult Swim like comedy show. Like I think it was Children's Hospital.
Oh,
she had a starring role.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how she is in other things. I've like barely seen her and stuff, but like she's just like not. She looks the part, but she's just not up to the task. She looks the part,
absolutely. But I think that also might just be like, very much a result of that surface level approach you have to take to adapting a Watchmen like the entirety of Watchmen to screen, because like the big thing with like let me just riff on Laurie for a minute.
Yeah, it looks like she's mostly done like TV drama and comedy and dramedy. Like, yeah, she's just not doesn't have.
I mean, none of them were name pullers. Like none of them were like,
which
you know,
like I'll give like Zach Snyder credit. Like I think it's easy to make like a comparison. Like you could call him like a vulgar auteur like Michael Bay, but he's not. Michael Bay's super commercial, and Zack Snyder really isn't. There's people that like his thing. It's kind of flashy and sometimes super, but it's not commercial. He's, you know, like he makes these movies like fucking 4 hours long. That's not something you do when your eyes on the bag.
But the thing with like the big thing with Laurie's like story is that she like her mother was the first Silk Spectre. Her mother was almost raped by the comedian, but at some point they had a consensual sexual relationship, which, you know, the dynamic of that is like I think, and this goes for any sort of narrative about like sexual violence or like interpersonal violence and whatnot. Like you need the time and the space and like the detail in order to do those ideas justice. And the way like the having to truncate like all of this narrative into a limited like theatrical runtime, like even the 3.5 hour version, I'm assuming, does this. It reduces it, and it makes it like Laurie doesn't really feel like she has a character arc in the movie. Like and she doesn't really feel like she has a character.
Yeah, you get less of her, and you get less of her mom too. Her mom there's more of her in
Carla
the comic.
Guadagnino. Yeah. I probably fucked up her last name, but have you seen Gerald's Game?
No, I read the book.
She's in Gerald's Game. Oh my! That was a speaking of unfilmable movies. That was also a story that was considered unfilmable.
Doing as a movie.
I mean, it exists and it's great.
I heard that was good.
Yeah, it's sick. It's sick. But yeah, I think, you know what? Let me talk about her costume in this movie, because I think her costume is very endemic of like one of my biggest gripes with this movie, and I think one of my biggest gripes with like Zach Snyder in terms of how he like, you know, depicts women on screen. Like there's for example, there's that one shot where her and Night Owl are, you know, they're going to bust Rorschach out of jail, and she tumbles out of the like owl ship or whatever the fuck that thing is called, and she does this like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure ass pose, like and it's just like an action hero pose after like rolling out on top of this like fucking disgusting jail that is in the middle of a riot. But in the original comic, like Silk Spectre 2's outfit is more like it's like a jumper underneath and like you know, like billowy like
because it's a version of, because her mom just like that for us, like her mom just from birth
was like a pinup,
pushed her into this lifestyle, and her costume was like 40, like Silk Spectre. That's a very 40s kind of pulp name.
Oh, right? Yeah.
So like her mom very much like got into the superhero thing to build a brand. In the book, that's explicit. Like,
yeah, and in her old age, she like, you know, she likes the fact that she was considered as like, you know, desirable.
Oh, yeah.
She's still hanging on to that.
She's got this. Yeah, her friend or someone found an old Tijuana Bible, which are like little hand doodled porno comics from World War II.
She's like, look, it's cute, and Laurie's like, that's disgusting, mother. But yeah, here's in the movie. And Zack Snyder said somewhere, he was like, yeah, I didn't, you know, want to change, you know, too much about the characters' like physical appearance. I just wanted to like kind of modernize a bit their costumes. And by modernize in Zack Snyder's vernacular, at least in like 2008, 2009, that means putting a woman in just like a completely latex costume.
Yeah.
Where she's just like, you just see camel toe whenever she's kicking. Like, that must be the least comfortable thing.
Yeah, super
like, it's, you know, riding up her ass. Like, dude, it's...
But it's also
It's
like
it's
why,
ridiculous
for something
honestly.
like it's a kind of retro futuristic alternate 80s, but for something set in the 80s, why modernize to a 2008 sensibility? Like
It's
that's
not a very 80s looking costume.
there's
either.
a little bit of the retro futuristic 80s stuff, because in the book it was a retro futuristic present.
Yeah.
There's a little bit in the movie. If you squint, you can see it, but there's like a ton of stuff missing from that element, which is unfortunate because it's very charming. Like Laurie's like non-costume outfits, her long like e-cig thing that she's smoking in the book. This like
Oh yeah, because for all of you who are not seeing, I'm just like vaping on camera with Stu. Yeah, no, I saw that. It's like a long ass. It looks like it's like it looks like something you'd use in like a chemistry class.
yeah,
she's
yeah, it's
smoking
like
out
a
of.
weird long tube or something.
Like
It's,
with like a bulb in the middle.
yeah,
It's like a
yeah,
crack pipe.
it's like a little, like it looks a little bit Jetsons like. And that's all kind of missing, and that all adds a lot of character, and it's just visually genuinely like like you have Snyder Vision color palette. It's not quite wet concrete vision,
Yeah,
but like
Snyder Vision.
the book has such a striking and deliberate use of color, and it's a real shame to not see that translated to film.
I was literally going to say that as well. Like it is like this,
And that's like one
like,
thing
I
you
think
could
this
just
is not
do
a terrible looking movie. Like compared to like Man of Steel, like this is a lot more colorful
really
than.
underlit, but that might have been because I had to watch
It's
it on my
underlit.
laptop.
I think it's underlit.
Yeah,
Or just no. Well, I realized his movies, they're like color graded and they look like if you were wearing sunglasses while watching a movie. Like everything's like dim. Like the colors seem dim. It's like it's like Zack Snyder's probably just watching these movies with sunglasses
it
on.
looks like
cool.
It looks like a 3D movie, but not in 3D.
Yes. Yes.
All his movies look kind of like that.
Yeah, which no me gusta. Yeah, speaking of like Snyder Vision, I think we got to coin that term. Snyder Vision. One more thing that ties in with Silk Spectre, because I watched the part of the motion comic that does the flashback to comedian's attempted rape. It is not as graphic in the comic.
Not as no, she gets
way more graphic in the movie.
She gets her ass beaten brutally in the movie. It's a weird. I mean, but that's probably like that.
she gets beat up in the comic, but she like there are one of the
like the movie really and it does it with the same slow mo like the fight scenes a little bit.
Yeah,
it's like
So I'm gonna give you some like feminist media study 101. You'll hear me say or throw out the word like male gaze a lot. At least in my mind, when I think of the male gaze, a good way of detecting.
I think of Elton John.
Just no, I think of like body parts, like close-ups and like fragmented images of women's body parts that feel and have like the sort of visual reverence of like a fast food commercial, or like you're showing like a slab of meat
like a titty, like
off.
a hamburger, all glistening.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's and there are so many shots like that during that scene. Comedian just like running his fingers up Carlo Guadagnino's like thigh, and it like lingers on it. And it's like none of that is in the comic. None of that. That is all Zack Snyder.
Yeah. But that is
all Zack Snyder.
Here's the weird thing though. So there's all of that leering, which
yes, leering.
And there's all of from comedian and the camera. Which I noted too. But I could also I could maybe see it being like, because I've seen Sucker Punch. I could see Snyder being like trying to be subversive and then just coming across doing exactly the thing. Maybe I don't know. I also suspect I'm giving him way too much credit with that. But
when Silk Spectre toppled out onto that rooftop and did that JoJo's pose, I'm convinced that's where Zack Snyder came up with the idea for Sucker Punch. Like that moment, he was like, "What if I made a movie that's all that?"
That is entirely what
it's that movie.
I remember my first girlfriend loved that movie too. Like it was, but yeah, but here's the weird thing. So it's so much more lurid and it's so much more violent.
Yeah.
But at the same
unnecessarily
time,
so.
it is an almost rape. Like he gets stopped kind of right before he gets in. 'Cause I don't know a better way to say that. In the book, I mean,
attempted. It's an attempted.
I would need to double check, but in the book, I think it's just a rape. It's like way less luridly depicted.
Hooded Justice stops it.
Okay. It's been a few months. I was a little unsure of that, but the book is a lot more restrained, and I would say tactful in how it depicts it.
Yeah, not so here, where like when Laurie realizes like what her true parentage is, like it just kind of feels.
Also, I don't think. Again, I need to double check here.
2 hours later.
Sorry, Miguel. I hit a button or something and it stopped recording. So, I was just saying about, so when Laurie confronts Dr. Manhattan, he brings her to Mars so they can have a conversation where he says, it'll end in tears. In the book, like some of her memories are kind of missing, like her drunkenly confronting the comedian about the attempted rape at a party. But also like there's this bottle of nostalgia perfume, which you see advertised in the background of the movie. It's like Vite's company is advertising nostalgia perfume. And he has this thing, like it goes more in depth with him sitting in front of his bank of computer monitors, kind of like not watching any one thing, but absorbing the zeitgeist and being like, we're in a moment of crisis and war, invest in this and that and market on nostalgia and familiarity. And then at the end,
I think you brought this up in a previous episode. I think you just, yeah.
And then at the end of the book, in like the denouement, he's advertising millennium. It's like, we're past the crisis. Now it's like the new age and it's all forward looking speculative stuff. But I forget how it ends. It's just like a Dr. Manhattan science magic thing, but she has this bottle of nostalgia perfume and she's having this realization about the comedian being her father, and you see these panels of the perfume tumbling through the air and spilling, and then it smashes against his Mars palace, and that's when it collapses.
We don't
and in the movie she just like hits it really hard and it breaks.
It's little details like that are like symbols and like visual motifs that have to be given like time and space in order to be given like meaning, like those kind of things that are exercised from like the film version. That's like what we mean when we say this is like a very like it's a faithful adaptation, in that like pretty much everything there, like, and the only major change is the ending, which arguably kind of we'll talk about that, but kind of depending on how you look at it, I think works, at least for like to end a Watchmen movie. But
yeah,
see,
and it's not to nitpick like, oh, they did something different than the book. Like that's not the point. It's that the changes that they make or the things they omit reveal a lack of understanding of the material or compromises with it to make it more commercial or accessible to the imagined idiot audience. Because like even little things like Dr. Manhattan, he in his little speech after his palace shatters, when he has his realization like, oh, there is something interesting about human life, and it can surprise me, and be interesting. And he says miracles in the movie, in reference to what Laurie says. In the book, he says thermodynamic miracles. It's a tiny thing, but he's referring to a specific phenomena of like extraordinarily rare, like atomic events, and then comparing human life to that. And it's a chunk of that speech is in the movie, but it's simplified and kind of dumbed down a little bit. But like, I think that choice, like he says, thermodynamic miracles, everything's still in scientific materialist terms for Dr. Manhattan. That's important.
It's, well, there's a difference, like, because not to say that there are like you see there are a lot of stuff in the there's like shit in the background of shots that like, you know, tie into the like comics, but I don't think like Zack Snyder doesn't understand the way like or at least this movie doesn't understand the way the original comic did. Just that it's not about like, you know, the excitement of recognizing something because it ties into something else. It's about the meaning and like how those objects like so I found a quote and this just stood out to me because we've talked previously about how so much of these superhero movies now are just like throwing in Easter eggs, you know, with no purpose other than for like seal people in the theater to sit up in the theater and point at it. So yeah, it was some interview he gave, but I took an it says Snyder said that he has been going back and forth with the studio Warner Brothers about which scenes should be cut and which should remain. I've lost perspective on that now because to me, the honest truth is I geek out on little stuff now as much as anybody, Snyder said. Like, people will go, we've got to cut. You don't need that shot of Hollis Mason's garage sign. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Of course you do. Are you crazy? And this is the part I highlighted. He said, how will people enjoy the movie without shit like that in it? So it's hard for me. I think it's probably good because I think we're going to end up with that stuff in the movie. Just the way he phrased that, how will people enjoy the movie without shit like that in it? And it's like, people will enjoy the movie if it's a good, well-made movie.
Yeah. And
that's it's like that. It's like it's so hard talking about Zack Snyder because it's like he's, you know, we joke that he's like a dumb jock guy and, you know, a bad filmmaker, but he's not. But it's just like
he's a nerd.
He just feels very like he makes. What did I say? I said this to my roommate the other night. He makes movies that feel like they were made for 14, 15-year-old boys in like 2007. Like he is perpetually stuck making those.
He is the 15-year-old boy. Like,
yeah.
At certain levels, he's never really, I think, progressed past that and that level of engagement with the material. So, like, I thought Watchmen was awesome when I first read it when I was like, like 15, 16. And I probably engaged it at about that level at that age. I'm not 15 anymore.
No.
And I mean, like, and that's the thing, like, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, just the color grading notwithstanding, with the right material, he could make a perfectly good movie, but it's got all of these, it's got that mentality, but married with these larger intellectual, realistic superhero movie aspirations. And again, it means that there's all these contradictions that aren't even, that he's not even cognizant of in his movies. And that's why I think it was good that we did this, because it illuminates a lot of that and it'll help explain.
Yeah.
And it explains the appeal, because I think a lot of the Snyder guys or stands of like his Justice League stuff they're like him. And I mean, fair enough. Like, he's them and they are him. So they respond to his movies because that's also the frame through which they appear, which I guess it's fine. But I think that's what it is, right? And that's why it can seem so hard to parse the movies sometimes, because it requires a different set of kind of assumptions and way of engaging with them. Like, I just, I watched a lot of these cartoons as a kid. I've read some of these comic books, like, not just Watchmen. I've got a few Batman comics and stuff over here. But I'm not a fanboy like that.
Yeah, it's not your entire personality.
Yeah, and he is. He's a fanboy, which means he's including stuff because it's there. But I don't want to say never. I don't want to say he has zero understanding of the material. But like, there's a lot that he misses, and a lot of depth that I think he misses, and a lot of stuff that he includes for the whole Black Freighter sequence. From the way it's put in the movie, I think he basically understood it, where it's like, it's. But what it was analogous to, but like,
that was cut from the version I watched.
It also like doesn't it's great in the book, but like if you're gonna make a movie at all, like that is a thing you can totally cut. Like it's cool,
yeah.
but it's also like the way it's done. Like it's animated in a very like it's decently animated, I think, but it's like animated in a very contemporary style. In the book, the Black Freighter panels look like older pulp comic book panels. They're like printed in that like dot dithered style.
Oh, like a dot matrix?
Kinda, yeah. It was a way they printed cheaper and older comics
Yeah.
to save money, right? Where it's like you've got a few colors you can use, you put them on as dots, and then you mix the dots of different colors together to create gradients and shades and stuff. And the Black Freighter interludes look like that. And so in the movie, you could have animated them like an 80s cartoon, right? Or at least approximately.
Yeah. Oh, does it look, how does it, oh, is it like Newgrounds Flash animation?
No, it's competently animated. It just looks.
I feel like competent is not good enough for Watchmen, though.
It also, yes, but it's just very animated in a very contemporary way, I think. And it's also, again, like the violence, everything's just epicked up a little. Like everything in this movie's epicked up a little. In the book, unless I've missed some small detail, when like Dr. Manhattan like teleports from point A to point B, he just appears. I don't think there's any like big flash of light. But in the movie, of course, there has to be a great big dramatic flash of light and electricity and energy.
Yeah.
Well, he's kind of glowing here in this panel, maybe a little bit, but it's like, again, everything's amped up and made more epic and awesome, which like if he did like a heavy metal movie or something, like,
oh, he would be fine. So good at making like live action heavy metal.
I'm not against that stuff. It's just such a bad fit for Watchmen, and it's such a bad fit for combining with the like I want to be like Watchmen kind of pseudo intellectual thing that makes like Man of Steel so ponderous and frustrating to watch.
And headache inducing.
Yeah. And again, and also just like the terrible color grading. I don't know why these movies have to look like that.
It's not as bad as like
I can't
Man
let
of
go
Steel.
of that. It's just so hard to watch.
It's like, as you said, there is a very deliberate use of color in the comic, and they're these very saturated like color. It almost looks like a like Argento ass lighting.
It's not quite like, as neon-y. Yeah, but it is like
I could see a version, like a film adaptation of Watchmen, really employing that use of, you know, bright color, like in Creepshow. I think they use that sort of like bright color lighting in very like deliberate moments in the story. But like to evoke like the comic book aesthetic as well. So but you know, not to beat up too much on Zack Snyder, because this is a hard R-rated like superhero film with a blue cock out in it.
That's true. Yeah, we got Big Blue Dongle.
We have to. BBD. Yeah, we got Dongle in this.
That sequence where Laurie's having sex with Dr. Manhattan, then it's like a bunch of arms, and she realizes it's like 3 of them at once because he can just he's kind of almost omnipresent. Would that freak you out, or would you be like, hell yeah?
I'm not answering that question. You already know the answer, because I'm like, girl, is that the like that's the worst thing in your relationship going on? I find it funny that was too much for her, but she's like totally cool to have awkward, cringy sex in the Alamo-mobile.
Well, I think like at least in the book, it's like it bothers her because it's dehumanized. Like it feels like
it doesn't come across like that in the movie though.
Yeah, it's like just her Dr. Manhattan's interactions with her are always like utilitarian. Like, this is what I thought would give you maximal pleasure, and he's also like working on his stuff at the same time and everything, right? Like she wants a human connection, and Dan is pathetic, and the relationship is like a little bit kind of sad, but it's also like he's a person and he looks at her like a person, and that's kind of what
they're
brings
the
them
two
together.
people who need each other.
Yeah, and also it's like hardly anyone else could understand them, right?
Yeah, can we talk? Can we, because that is the other famous scene.
Yeah, which is, again, it's not unlike it's basically like what happens in the comic. It's just
they fuck in the comic, and there is
they lean on the button because she actually sets off the flamethrower earlier in the book, in the owl, in the Archie, in the Archimedes.
So she didn't press on it in the book as like a double like visual entendre.
No, she accidentally bumped it, and then it's like it's a joke. They're having sex in the owl thing, and then they bump into they bump into the button, and it's but like it's not like in the movie. It's a really extended
it was set up.
Sex scene, and in the book it's like the movie is it's very sentimental and very romantic about the relationship in the movie.
Yeah.
Whereas the book isn't so sentimental about it. It's more just like two middle-aged people stumbling into a relationship because nothing else in their life works. And it's like kind of sweet and then kind of pathetic. Like there's pathos and bathos to it. And then the movie just takes it totally at face value. Like, again, I think it's because Zach Snyder's on some level a nerd, and he identifies with Owl too, the earnest nerd. And he's like, yeah, you should have always been with Owl. He's the legit guy. Dr. Manhattan's weird. Ephebophilic god.
Yeah. He's a Chad. He's too Chad.
But because also
with a beta like me.
The book does have the kid in glasses sitting by the newspaper stand reading the Black Friday comic. But in the movie, they add this little thing where he's being bullied by some of the Top Knot gang guys for reading comics, and they're like, "What a read, what a fag, he's reading comics."
that is completely Zack Snyder.
That
is
totally
all Zack Snyder commentary.
And that to me, that was so illuminating about him, and about I think why his superhero movies are so ponderous. Is he's like, "Oh no, it's legitimate, it's epic myth."
Yeah,
it's for grown-ups.
Yes.
And it's because he's still on some level insecure about liking comic books. Because he was a nerd in like the 70s and 80s. So he's like a Gen X guy, right? He's probably like 50 or something.
He's super like, take a look at him. And that is a guy who's like, look up Gen X in a like phrenology of Gen X, and you just get a picture of Zack Snyder. Or
in March 1st, he's
absolutely
close to my parents' age. So he was like in the 70s.
Here he is making his horny superhero movie.
Yeah. So like that's probably explains a lot of it. I think that's like maybe our Rosetta Stone to understanding to understanding why he approaches this material the way he does. And I don't know. I'm just trying to think. So what else? I feel like I've kind of.
Well, I feel like we haven't talked enough about the fact that there is just blue dong throughout this entire movie.
Like, blue dong. Like, it's right there. I think maybe because it's blue.
The unforgettable glowing blue
they could
penis.
Get away with it.
Like, there are things about this movie that like haven't aged well, that in the sense of they feel very much stuck in like 2008, 2009 culture. But then there are things that just by virtue of the sort of superhero movies and comic book movies that we get like in droves now, where, oh hell yeah, there's cock in this fucking superhero movie. Like, I'm not gonna get that from Captain America 4. Are you kidding me?
You wish.
Like, well, Chris Evans isn't going to be in Captain America 4. He's done. He's retired. Oh, yeah. But like, yeah, there are just things that, in Watchmen and hence in the adaptation, just that, like, you would never see in another like superhero movie. You would,
there's some good gore. There's some solid gore in this movie. There's
some CGI blood splatter too. That's very distracting. Like the part where the
excessive. there's some bloody parts in the book, but they're not quite as
well,
campy in their execution.
The flashback to Rorschach's like childhood, where he's like a kid being picked on by those two bullies. First of all, that is Zack Snyder's son playing young Rorschach. And two, when he like bites his cheek, when he like bites the flesh of his cheek off, that's some terrible CGI blood. That's some terrible. It looks. And it for some reason, like CGI blood splatter and CGI like blood effects always look worse with this, Zack Snyder color grading. Like
that's true.
It just like it looks like a bad video game cutscene, or like you're watching this with sunglasses on. Yeah, or you're watching this with your like the dimness on your like laptop all the way off.
I mean, we keep coming back to the color grading, but it's such a weak point of his visual style. Like it is just every movie is just made worse by this weird sepia teal underlit.
You know what? I had a realization though, because I had made an observation. There was like it's in the comic as well, but I made an observation in my note. There's that the part where Lori and Dan, she's like having a dream and they're like ripping each other's skin off on the surface of Mars, and then like an atom bomb goes off and they explode. And I just wrote like in my notes, that visuals reading very like Ken Russell Altered States to me. Ken Russell being like probably the most like exemplary like maximalist director. Eventually we'll do a Ken Russell episode, but yeah, wouldn't you know, at the climax, what's on one of the monitor screens Adrian Veidt is watching is fucking Altered States.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
What else did I notice was on there? There was
I think Tom and Jerry.
Yeah, there was something I didn't write it down in my notes.
The fucking Where's the Beef lady? Miguel, clipping.
Hey, where's the beef?
Yeah. Literally all of our listeners are 6 years old. No one's going to understand that reference.
I mean, that's before our time too. That's
the only reason 80s. I know it was because I watched like I Love the 80s on VH1. And it's like, oh, funny old lady yell about beef.
Hey, where's the beef?
Yeah, which is, anyways, my point is Ken Russell's movies were very, very colorful. Like, again, this was the time period like before digital color grading existed. But it's interesting to see like, well, clearly Zack Snyder has seen Altered States, so clearly he knows like Ken Russell movies, and if Zack Snyder is trying to be this like big maximalist like in the style of Ken Russell, he's missing like one of the crucial elements, and that's color. Like,
well, I don't know if he's trying to be a maximalist or if he's just like
well, that's
what would
that's
be
the
awesome.
thing I was debating.
This is just what he thinks is awesome, which I think that's like that's all there is to it, to a lot of it. Like I never know whether I'm giving him too little credit or totally overthinking like a really, really straightforward filmmaker. It's weird. Like Zack Snyder kind of confounds me.
That's just, why are you like this?
It's not just one or the other, because sometimes I think he is trying to do things, and then other times it's like, he just did a thing because it seemed cool to his particular sensibility, and I it's hard to tell sometimes which is which.
He's like, it's hard to pin him down, so we kind of have to keep reverting to this, perception of him as like a dumb geek jock Chad dude.
I did notice there's something injected here, at least in the Ultimate Cut, is a few allusions to with his project with Dr. Manhattan. Ozymandias, Adrian Veidt is creating like fusion energy or something, like free energy.
Yeah, clean renewable energy.
And there's some allusions to fossil fuels as a crisis. And there's that meeting, which I don't think is in the book, where like Lee Iacocca, who was in the 80s the head of General Motors, being like, this sounds like socialism.
Oh
what
yeah,
you're
wait,
doing.
hold
Maybe
on.
I should investigate your background. Is like he's threatened to like red bait him.
Yeah, it's something about yeah, free is just another word for socialist.
Yeah, and that's obviously like global warming, Iraq era stuff because I don't think any of that's in the book.
No, the energy.
I mean, Dr. Manhattan and Veidt are working on a project, and there is a line of dialogue again. I don't think is in the book about maybe this war wouldn't be happening if we had sufficient resources. No one had anything to fight. I'm
yeah, there's something like that as well.
So I don't like again like little things like that make me think that reading Snyder is like strictly sympathetic to Rorschach, objectivist guy. I don't. I mean, then again, that might be. I don't think it's. I think the credited writer on this is actually, although I think the movie's heavily changed from his draft. Is it David Hayter?
Yes.
David Hayter is the voice of Solid Snake in Metal Gear Solid.
A nuclear weapon, questions, gene therapy, the sons of Big Boss, the DIA, a female analyst.
Which is just, I don't think that means. Although you could say, like, I mean, there's something akin between Hideo Kojima and Zack Snyder in that.
Yeah,
Hideo Kojima is like I like his stuff way more. It like ultimately ends up working better. But it's also like the world's like dumbest smart guy or the world's smart. Like Hideo Kojima is like the world's smartest dumb guy or the world's dumbest smart guy.
I feel like
his stuff is also a mix between like
he has just better execution.
Definitely. This stuff is also a mix between like sometimes really fuzzily, sometimes really clearly thought out, big idea, complicated stuff, and other times it's just I just did this because it seemed cool.
It's cool.
There's just a cow.
Which has a charm.
This Russian spy is a cowboy, and he does cowboy tricks with his gun. And then here's a lecture
charming.
about the arms race. No,
there's nothing charming like that with Zack Snyder. Like he doesn't like.
He's just too.
No, his Snyderisms are. I'm going to make this rape scene even more.
Well, again, because I think it's like that 15-year-old. I don't, for lack of a better word, edginess, like
here's another
pushing, amplifying tendency, coupled with like on some level kind of being insecure about being a comic books and genre fiction fan, right?
Yeah. Well, they're like again, like you can pinpoint like dialogue that is like that is not in the comic, like.
It stands out like a sore thumb.
It's like there's like during Rorschach's like flashback scenes, like when his mother hits him, she never says, "Bastard, I should have had that abortion" in the comic.
No,
she never makes any of. That's all like the screenwriters and Zack Snyder. Like it's such an overly harsh and like why do you gotta fucking like bring that into this? Like,
also, like the depiction of Nixon is way more like cartoony, like almost like Richard Nixon in Futurama.
That is such a bad Nixon prosthetics too.
That too, yeah. But like Nixon in the book, you don't get that much of him and Kissinger, and it's a lot more restrained. Or they're more of a caricature.
Okay, but isn't that funny? Henry Kissinger is a living comic book character.
That's true. Yeah.
And he's still fucking alive.
He is a fucking supervillain.
Wait, hold on. Let me just look up how old is Henry Kissinger.
Oh, he's like 96 years old.
99.
He's ancient.
He's
Holy
99.
Shit. That son of a bitch.
Why? There is no reason he should be alive.
It's outrageous that he should live to
he outlived Betty White.
How bizarre.
Like that's yeah. Anyways, yeah. I did have to write in my notes. Henry Kissinger is a comic book character.
Speaking of, there's something I noticed. I just wanted to triple check to make sure it's not in the comic, which it definitely is. So yeah, that like Lee Iacocca meeting, not in the comic at all. You do get one shot.
War Room.
You do get one shot of the Adrian Veidt Lee Iacocca meeting.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah, that is very explicitly Dr.
Oh, explicitly, like the production
very
designer said. Yeah. Oh yeah. And it's
which like fine, but like you do get one shot of Veidt in his office, which is a little more Art Deco in the comic. Which again, everything just has a little more visual personality, aesthetically. But I noticed in the comic, it's not there. I noticed in those two scenes in his office, in those two shots of him in his office with the big New York skyline behind him of Ozymandias, the Twin Towers are really, really prominent.
Oh, in the movie?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's completely...
Especially when he's having
that's
that
deliberate.
energy conversation. And behind him, like, the Twin Towers are center frame. And he's, like, on one side.
Oh, yeah, that's completely
and there's
deliberate.
A blimp. There's an airship, a blimp, heading towards the Twin Towers in the background. While he talks about, like, energy independence and fossil fuels and, like, foreign interests.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's completely deliberate. Not
Like,
that it's saying anything. It's
did
just
9/11, like
the no, it's deliberate in the sense of like, hey, don't we miss these guys? Don't we miss these little
here's
feller
the line.
buildings?
Where Veidt where Lee Iacocca fails to intimidate Adrian Veidt. Fossil fuels, nuclear power. None of this is in the book. Fossil fuels, nuclear power, weird things lumped together, are a drug. You gentlemen, along with foreign interests, are the pushers. And then, meanwhile, the Twin Towers are just center frame. Like, that's an interesting choice. That's
it doesn't. It's just like, hey, no, it's just. I think it's just there to be like, hey, remember these guys? Like,
well, no, because think about it, like 9/11, Iraq War, oil.
Yeah,
Saudis.
no, I'm just doubting Zach Snyder is deliberately trying to make a comment, like a
no, that's got to be intentional. The Twin Towers are center frame, and this is all added into the movie. But
I don't think Zack Snyder understands what any of that means.
Maybe not, but like it's just, like, I don't know, maybe he saw Fahrenheit 9/11.
Yeah, no, he saw Fahrenheit 9/11.
I'm not sure what it is he's trying to say, but it's definitely like. Yeah. But it's also weird because he makes his bite really, really villainous, but then at the same time,
he's like Norman Bates. He gives off like serious. Which I think Matthew Good was in Stoker too,
right?
Yeah,
he has him give this speech about foreign interests and fossil fuels and nuclear power,
which is just code for evil.
But that's like, I feel like you're supposed to be sympathetic to him sympathetic to that speech. It's such a weird scene, and it's. But again, it's one of the things that makes me think like he's not like a Randian libertarian, but more some species of confused like liberal. Like he saw like a Michael Moore movie and it was like, oh, the Saudis were tied up in 9/11 and this is all about oil or something.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
I think this leads, well, speaking of that, why don't we just talk about the end of this movie? Because that's the big change in like the adaptation like narrative it is like
in the
because
book.
Speaking of 9/11, because at least this is my theory why they partly changed the ending, because the original ending is he teleports a disgusting giant squid into New York, and it like kills 3 million New Yorkers, and that's what brings about world peace, is a deadly attack on New York.
Yeah,
as we learned from 9/11, a deadly attack on New York City does not bring about world peace. It brings about very much the opposite. So that, and I imagine like, this wasn't like, with the Suicide Squad, for example, like they, we're at a technological point in time where we can, put a giant fucking disgusting starfish on screen and it's, doesn't look like shit and it's believable. Like they couldn't, I think they didn't think they could pull that off in 2009.
What I think it is that they thought audiences would think it was too silly and out there.
And too silly too.
And the book like threads it in like that, like scientists and artists and even psychic mediums have been going missing, is because they've all been being recruited to this like Manhattan Project. And a bunch of them think it's like for a movie or something. And it's to create, so he's hired like the art, like they've made the squid to be as nightmarish as possible. He's hired like the best artists. and he's hired like the best writers to create like a nightmarish psychic shockwave to go along, because psychics exist, a psychic shockwave to go along with the squid appearing to give like the whole planet nightmares about it, right? And emotionally manipulate them. It's this,
okay.
And that's all kind of layered in as you go, and these little illusions. Like the guy who wrote the Black Freighter story, which is not a contemporary publication. I think it's supposed to have been like from a few years ago.
Yeah.
It lays one of the guys who was like recruited to work on this island, and then the comedian finds the island, and that's what freaks him out. And I think it's supposed to be intentionally like an absurd supervillain plan, right? Like it's supposed to be over the top in its complexity, and kind of silly. But also, just, I don't know, something doesn't quite work for me for that. I can see why they did it, but something doesn't quite work for me for the Dr. Manhattan.
I mean, I think
thing.
it's more believable, and like because it's not just New York that gets wiped out. It's, you know, multiple international cities, which, you know, that's more believable. And like, okay, we've all been attacked. It's not just concentrated in like the wealthiest, most populous.
The greatest city in the greatest city in the world.
You know, why the fuck would like Uganda care?
Yeah, well, I think it's because it's supposed to be the squid is an alien invader, so it's like we need to unite. It's like Independence Day, right? That's also maybe why they did it, because that was the plot of Independence Day.
I feel like the French would be like, not my problem. I don't know why that sounded Russian, but I mean, narratively, I feel like the change in the ending works. Like functionally, it does the same thing. Like we get the same end results. But I'm saying this is someone who hasn't fully read the comic, who's really only fully watched like the movie. You know, it ties, like it works in that, like, you know, framing Dr. Manhattan, it works as a plot line. Like it makes sense as well. It's not like they did a different ending and just did a like horrible nonsense shitty ending. Like I think it works, but it's also like we don't get a big giant disgusting squid.
As far as those compromises go, I guess like you could do a lot worse. But it's just something about Dr. Manhattan is the threat holding the world together. It's like just like the little things, like, oh, there's this psychic shockwave that goes with it and everything. Like, I don't know. Maybe again, like they'll also
that's a cool thing. That's
part of the point though is that it's supposed to be ambiguous as to whether it's really going to work, right? Like, like the Black Freighter story can be read as about Rorschach chasing his own delusion and being unable to stop it, but it's also he can be read as about Veidt and his anticipating this crisis. But I mean, he also the only reason they get to the point of launching nukes is because Dr. Manhattan's gone in the first place, right? Making the Russians think they've got a chance.
Okay, I don't know. Is that how it plays out in the comic or in the movie?
That's how it plays out in the movie.
Okay,
like tensions are rising, but America has Dr. Manhattan, right?
Okay, I didn't realize the Russians had. Okay. They did.
Field.
Okay.
So Veidt making Dr. Manhattan disappear to execute his plan in the first place creates a self-fulfilling prophecy for the crisis for him to solve.
Yeah.
So it's like his own anticipation of the crisis is also potentially like causing it to accelerating it in the first place.
Yeah.
Right. So you can read the Black story for like the movie when they in their version of the Black Freighter story. I don't know if that's in the art in the book. If I looked, maybe it's there. But like the sail he concocts looks like Rorschach's mask.
Okay.
And like again, like you can read, like it mirrors the story in multiple ways. So like that's there. But like it's also, and I think that again, I think the movie does kind of understand this too. But like it's also like Veidt, like the guy who did something evil because he anticipated some greater evil. The guy thinks, oh, the Black Freighter arrived. Wait, do you know the Black Freighter story from the motion comic?
No. So I'll have to look into it.
It's sort of like a horror pirate comics. This guy is.
I saw like a panel with a shark.
Yeah, his ship is waylaid by the Black Freighter, which is this like narrative device that presumably threads together all of these stories. in this anthology. And he is stranded on an island. He makes a raft out of all of his dead crew, and he's slowly going mad. Yeah, he's slowly kind of going mad because he knows this fighter's heading towards his hometown. And so he's trying to get there. And he's like, in his head, he's like, oh, the fighter's gotten there. By the time he gets there, he's like, I know the fighter's gotten here first. They've sacked the town. They've taken over. Everybody here is a pirate or a collaborator. He ends up killing a couple people, including his wife, in the grips of this intense delusion.
Oh.
And then he's chased out of the town. He flees. And then he sees the black freighter waiting for him, and they welcome him aboard as one of their own. So that's the little story within a story.
Damn. Okay.
And it, like on its own, actually, it's a good, it's a good little kind of like little Twilight Zone.
It sounds like something you should watch. Like it sounds like it would be a good watch something else movie if that was like a real thing.
Yeah, and I can see how like releasing it standalone, which they also did. Like they released the Black Freighter short as standalone to watch, which probably made more sense than cutting it into the movie where it's like pretty jarring.
Yeah, I get the sense it would probably be like jarring. So yeah, that's like, what is that now? The fourth time you've like sneezed on camera?
It's a cough. I've had this like tingly throat, comes and goes cough ever since I started the trip down here, and I don't know why. It's not bad.
The air. It's the air.
Well, it started before
something in the air.
I don't know what it is. It doesn't get worse, but it won't go away. And it's just here and there it bubbles up. Like I'll go hours without feeling it, and then suddenly I have it again. I don't know why. What's your? Oh, never mind.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, since we're kind of at the end of this, the one thing like like I said in my intro, like this movie's fine. This movie's fine. But like during that climax, like when it shows all the explosions happening, they just look like Akira, like the opening of Akira. And I was I was just thinking like, damn, I wish I was watching Akira right now. And that's
hold on a minute.
Whoa, what? The rabbit that was outside Stu's window has now come in. Is up. Oh yeah, it's the Blu-ray.
Yeah, I found that when I was moving.
Oh, good. Yeah, no, Akira is also kind of like on the same, like it came out around the same time as like Watchmen did. So I feel like even though they're, were made on completely different like
it is about the same
of the earth.
Era, yeah.
They feel very like spiritually connected and thematically like similar in what they do.
What if you just had a Watchmen OVA that was that well animated?
That I was just about to say, like Watchmen would work really good as an animated like feature, and like a good animated feature that with color and like actual like 2D animation. I don't want this 3D like hyper. No, fuck that.
Fuck that Illumination.
No, I want it to
shit.
look
And it's that's the thing with so much of the superhero stuff and everything is like so much of this
better animated.
Would work better in animation.
Yeah.
And the only reason not to do it in animation is because of some lingering and I think deeply like out of step, like not grounded in reality idea that like, well, animation's for children and unless it's and adults won't come and watch a cartoon.
Oh my god, are you kidding? I fucking love that shit.
Like the reason anime is so popular is because that's like the only shit you can get that isn't like Cartoon Network.
Yeah.
Almost. Once like there's what was that show called? I saw an ad for some sci-fi show that's animated that looks sort of heavy metal vibes. Like for adults, 2D, drawn animated show.
What
with
channel?
Real animation? It's not like a wacky sitcom where the characters have that kind of paper doll.
Do you know what channel it is?
It was
not that I have cable.
Might have been a streaming service.
Okay,
might have been HBO Max or something. What was that? I'll have to find it, but it looked really cool. I was like, oh, shit.
Actually, I think I actually might know what you're talking about. I saw that. I think that came up
some actual
on my queue.
animation for adults that isn't a fucking cheaply made sitcom. What a treat.
Yeah. So what's your? I mean, as I'm guessing what's your final takeaway on Snyder Watchmen, and what do you recommend people should watch instead?
So Snyder Watchmen, like, he tried really hard.
He tried.
Doesn't get it. He doesn't get it. And I would say, like, it doesn't, there's some things I like about it, but it doesn't, I don't think it makes up for its shortcomings. But that's like I say, if you're not as much of a snob as I am, and also you've never read the comic, or you read it a long time ago and you don't remember it super well and you're not that into it, you'd probably think it's a perfectly fine movie.
Oh yeah. It read very, like, I think, I probably enjoyed it a lot more than someone who, yeah.
I think it just doesn't work as a movie, and it just falls short, and the changes it makes are all for the worse. And it's just, there's a lot, and I mean, this is true of a lot of adaptations, not any adaptation. It's just so much is lost in translation. Just in the time it takes to watch the ultimate cut, you can read the whole thing. It looks big, but it's a comic book. It's not like you can sit down and read this in 2 to 4 hours. I bought this copy for looks like $22.99 10 odd years ago. You can download it off of various websites very easily and just read it in a various comic reading free programs on your computer or tablet. Just read Watchmen. Like, seriously, just read Watchmen. It's great.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna, since I found out I don't actually have a copy somewhere in my apartment, so I'm gonna have to, next time I see one, presumably at like the thrift store or whatever, I'm grabbing one for sure.
Oh, like any kind of bookstore thing, I'll have them too. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Like, I think the best thing though that Zack Snyder did for Watchmen was I think the first trailer for Watchmen came out with The Dark Knight, and so it put Watchmen like back in like the top 10 bestseller list for several months.
Well, that's good then. That's a silver.
Good. And we didn't mention Alan Moore wants nothing to do with these Hollywood adaptations.
No,
that's why his name is not in the opening credits as the writer.
So he doesn't get a check.
Yeah.
He doesn't get a check for
he has
these.
all of those royalties go to
the artist.
Oh, what's the artist? Yeah, what's his name?
in this case, Dave Gibbons. But like, this is also true of From Hell and V for Vendetta and other attempts to adapt his stuff.
But what's your watch something else suggestion?
I've said this before, but like Venture Brothers.
Is it Independence Day? Oh,
no. I know I've said this before, but like Venture Brothers is probably, as much as it's vastly different in most respects, in certain key ways, it's probably closer in tone and theme. And its whole take, it's not really a superhero show per se, but it ends up having more and more superhero stuff in it as it goes on.
Well, I mean, there's a guy dressed as a
closer.
moth, so.
It's closer in like mindset, I think, to Watchmen than the movie is. I mean, those guys, I've like 110% guarantee read Watchmen, like for sure. But yeah, I can't really like. There's nothing really quite like it, and I mean, like so much of like it's like the way Evangelion. Or even I always forget if it's the hard G or the soft G.
It's hard G. It's hard G.
Always
you don't even Evangelion sandwich.
Like the way people like overemphasize like, oh, it's a deconstruction of the mecha genre at the expense of like all the other things going on. Watchmen's kind of the same thing. This whole it's a deconstruction of superheroes. It's like people lean so hard on that.
Yes, it is, but it's also like other things.
Lot of like there's a lot like what else is going on with it that makes it interesting and worth reading. But like this, I'm not going to say watch something else. I'm going to say read Watchmen. Just read Watchmen.
Read Watchmen.
It's not hard to get. If you're willing to read it on a computer, you can read it for free. And if you're not willing to get like, I don't know, $20 odd bucks, brand new. You could probably find them at thrift stores and garage sales. Just read Watchmen.
Absolutely.
It's
Like
great. It's awesome.
Oh no, you can probably go over to a friend's house and they probably have a copy.
Yeah. You probably know somebody's got a copy. Will lend it to you. Yeah.
Yeah. Any apartment occupied by like more than 3 people in their 20s or early 30s, there's at least one copy of unless it's my apartment, which I'm shocked. There was definitely a copy of Watchmen here at some point several months ago. I don't know where it went. Yeah, no, I would agree. Definitely read the comic. Not to say like I think the movie's fine. Like it's like Ant-Man. I think it's entertaining. I wasn't like didn't want to kill myself like with Man of Steel, and I'm sure how I'm going to feel with it's Batman v Superman.
I was very tired and I watched the very long Ultimate Cut, but even then, like it didn't lose me like Man of Steel did. It's not like unwatchable.
It never loses. Lost me.
It moves okay enough. It's not like I've complained about the color grading, but it's not like ugly to look at or anything.
No.
And again, like a lot of the cast is pretty strong, and enough of the original. Yeah, it can kind of coast on what it preserves from the original material. So, not like a terrible movie, but like I just can't endorse it for what it. And again, it's not pedantic. Like, oh, it's not just like the comic. It's that the choices it makes, where it changes or compromises, are for the worse, and often miss the point of the comic. Whereas changes that change what's literally in the comic, but are just translating the themes and ideas to a different medium would be fine by me. But again, that's also your mileage.
I mean, this is probably going to be like a masterpiece, though. Well, I said Acura, but I was just thinking like this movie's probably going to feel like a masterpiece because we have to do Batman v Superman next.
We have to do Batman v Superman next. Dawn of Justice.
Dawn. Oh. I know in my gut. Like I said, like the worst experience so far in this podcast has been like Man of Steel and Thor 2. I feel like this is really gonna. There are going to be things that are going to make me really want to kill myself.
This is going to be one of 2 upcoming movies we do, where last time I tried to watch them, I quit somewhere around or less than halfway through because I was so bored and frustrated, which I never do.
Damn. Okay. All right. So tune in next regular episode where me and Stu will commit seppuku live on air.
And please, again, continue to thank you again to all of our Patreon supporters. If you are not one, please consider signing up. Our first bonus episode is out. More episodes, commentaries, ratings, other things will be on the way.
Yep. We'll be doing a Ezra Miller watch episode. Just an episode where we're just going to talk about, give a timeline of Ezra Miller's reign of terror
who
for the past year.
Ezra Miller men?
Who watches the Ezra Miller
Miller persons? The Ezra Miller.
Who watches the they them? Who watches the they them? There we go. There's our episode title. That's the episode title for the Ezra Miller bonus episode. Who watches the they them?
Beautiful.
Oh man. See, when I'm good, I'm good.
All right. Thanks again, everybody. Check the links below the description. Review and do all of that stuff that helps us out if you're so inclined and you like the show. And have a great whatever time of day or month it is for you.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Hey, where's the thief?